Have you noticed how elite athletes travel all the way to high altitude climates such as mountains and countries like Kenya? They are doing what is known as altitude training, but going all the way to the mountains in Kenya, well, that is pretty expensive and quite simply you can't afford that. Well, I might have just found an alternative through what is known as an altitude mask. In today's video, I'm going to be testing out the altitude mask and seeing if you can get the same benefits from altitude training in the mountains. So if you do enjoy seeing me review products like this, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And without further ado, let's look at what the benefits of altitude training are. So the reason why so many athletes go to high altitude training is because in the higher altitudes there is less oxygen available in the air. With a lower air pressure, this stimulates a condition known as hypoxia. Now, the condition of hypoxia stimulates the body to adapt to be able to deliver more oxygen into the body. For example, the body can adapt by increasing the number of red blood cells in the body. So pretty much the benefits of training at high altitudes is that it trains your body to be able to take in oxygen more efficiently. So therefore this means when you come back to ground level surfaces, this means your body will be able to naturally take in more oxygen. This therefore will have benefits for your aerobic endurance as your VO2 max will be improved, and therefore with more oxygen in your body you will fatigue less quickly. Now of course we can't all afford to go to high altitudes in the mountains, so what has been invented is this altitude mask, which pretty much is meant to replicate the process of high altitude training. So pretty much altitude training benefits longer distance runners, from the 5k runners all the way up to those marathon runners. So this altitude mask is meant to restrict airflow, which is basically trying to replicate the process of there being less oxygen available. So the altitude mask is trying to mimic having less oxygen available, just like in those high altitude climates. So how the altitude mask works is that you wear it, you put it over your mouth and nose, and that is the areas where you breathe in the oxygen. So that is the areas which the altitude mask will be restricting the flow of oxygen to. So pretty much what we're going to do, I'm going to go onto the treadmill. Firstly, we're going to go to the treadmill because I don't want to be looking like the Terminator on the streets. Bruh. Secondly, because it's a treadmill, we can alter our pace, control the pace. So therefore, we're going to stimulate what it feels like to wear the altitude mask at different paces. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off at a nice and easy pace to get used to the altitude mask, and gradually we're going to increase the pace to see how we feel wearing an altitude mask. And after running on the treadmill, we're going to be showing you some scientific data to see if it does replicate the method of altitude training. But without further ado, let's go to the treadmill. After struggling to get the altitude mask on, and believe me it was hard to get this thing on, we went onto the treadmill. Like I said earlier, the good thing with the treadmill is that we can control our pace and go at different intensities when we wish to. We started things off at a nice and easy pace to warm up the legs and get used to wearing the mask. The first thing I noticed about the altitude mask is just how uncomfortable it was. I'd only been wearing the mask for a matter of seconds and I could already feel, particularly in the chin bone area, the hard plastic pressing against my face. It was relentless throughout how the plastic kept on rubbing against my face, and it definitely is not a comfortable thing to wear. Now after about a kilometer or two, we're feeling quite comfortable now, so I thought it was time to up the pace to more of a tempo effort. And now just under 10 minutes of running on the treadmill, I can feel the sweat patches starting to form on where the mask had been pressing. For a tempo effort pace, I definitely felt like I was working a lot harder than what I should be. Is this a sign that the altitude mask was working well? Quite possibly. I could still sustain the effort, but definitely for this pace I should not have been working as hard. But then I myself, I don't normally choose to run on the treadmill, and today was just an exception. This could just mean I'm not used to running on the treadmill, because running on the treadmill you use different muscles when running on the roads. However, I can notice how my lungs felt more empty as I was struggling to get the oxygen into my body. The one thing the mask most certainly did was reduce the amount of oxygen going into my lungs. Hitting the 5km mark, we were now onto our final kilometer of the run, so it was time to increase the pace to our final intensity. I was now running at an average pace of 3:45 per kilometer. This was just below my 10km pace, so you could call this a threshold pace. At this point my legs have started to feel a bit stiff now. This could have been because of the reduced flow of oxygen to the muscles in the legs, and this could have resulted in a build-up of lactic acid in the area. And you can also see by the clip on the screen that my form is starting to become a bit shaky now. So I think the one thing you can definitely conclude with for running with an altitude mask is that it definitely makes you run harder. And the final clip which I'm going to play is going to show you how my breathing sounded during the run. just like that, 6 kilometers completed, and now I'm very happy to be able to take the altitude mask off. Alright guys, so we're back from the treadmill now, and I can most definitely say that you're definitely working hard when you've got the altitude mask on. But now let's look at some scientific data to see if the altitude mask actually replicates the method of altitude training. So they don't exactly replicate the method of altitude training because quite simply, even though it does restrict your airflow, you still don't have the low oxygen pressure which you get up in the mountains. Instead, altitude masks, the main benefit they have is improving your RMT, which stands for respiratory muscle training. So this basically means your respiratory muscles, such as your diaphragm or your intercostal muscles, will be able to contract with greater force to bring in more oxygen. This pretty much means the benefits of wearing an altitude mask is quite different from the benefits of altitude training. This therefore means the altitude mask has different benefits to altitude training and therefore doesn't replicate the same process. Also, with altitude training, you'll be in the high altitudes for the entire period of your visit for a couple of weeks, and basically with your altitude mask it will only work when you're wearing it, which is only for a couple of hours per day. So to conclude with the altitude mask, it does not replicate the process of altitude training. It does have benefits of its own, but we need to remember that the benefits of the altitude mask is completely different to the benefits of altitude training. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you want to see me review more running tech, comment below what you want me to review, and if you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.